The new situation in the Red Sea is getting worse because the Houthis are trying very hard to fight US and UK troops. From their base in Yemen, the Houthis are using every tool they have to target US Navy ships in the Red Sea. At least 8 of the Houthis' efforts to attack the US Navy have been stopped so far, but the rebel group backed by Iran has not given up. 8 rounds of attacks have been carried out in the area against the Houthis. Both the US and UK forces worked together on the first and 8th attacks, which were the worst. The repeated strikes have really shook up the Iranian-backed group. A spokeswoman for the Houthis, Yahya Saraya, said in a statement that the Yemeni military will continue to fight back against any attack from the US or Britain by going after all threats in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea. In the past few weeks, US and British forces have attacked Houthi forces all over Yemen. This is in reaction to months of attacks by Houthi forces on civilian ships and oil boats in the Red Sea, which were caused by Iranian-backed fighters in Gaza. The US also called the Houthi rebels global terrorists last week because of what they did. At first, the Houthi rebels said they were only going after ships with ties to Israel, but after the attacks, they said they would also go after US ships, which made things very tense in the Red Sea. Last night, the US and UK armies fired up to 30 rounds in their 8th attack on Houthi sites in western Yemen. 4 Royal Air Force RAF Typhoons were used in the attacks, according to UK Defence Minister Grant Shapps. On Monday, the US and UK, along with Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, said they would launch 8 strikes against Houthi underground, storage, rocket, and monitoring bases. The aim of these precision strikes is to disrupt and undermine the capabilities that the Houthis use to threaten global trade and the lives of innocent mariners, a joint statement stated. According to Mohammed Ali al-Houthi, who is in charge of the Houthis Supreme Revolutionary Committee, X should have full confidence that every operation and every attack against our country will not go unanswered after the US and UK strikes. The army said that 21 troops were killed in the bloodiest attack on Israeli forces since the Hamas raid on October 7th that started the war in the Gaza Strip. The Houthis must have known they were going to lose the game. When it came to science and knowledge, the US was much better than the Houthis. The US also had a much stronger navy than the group backed by Iran. During these events, an unknown US fighter jet shot down a cruise missile fired from Houthi troops in Yemen that were backed by Iran. Central Command of the U.S. said in a statement on Sunday evening that the missile was aimed at the USS Laboon, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile cruiser in the southern Red Sea. The event happened around 4:45 p.m. Sana'a time, according to CENTCOM. It was shot at the USS Laboon, DDG-58, from Houthi rebel areas in Yemen that are backed by Iran while it was working in the southern Red Sea. U.S. jets shot down the rocket near Hodeida's coast. There were no reports of accidents or damage. During this situation, this is the first time an airplane has been shot down without saying which service it was. So far, only Super Hornets from the US Navy have been involved in these fights. This could be different now. We reached out to find out more. In reaction to ongoing attacks on ships, the US and UK hit a number of targets in Yemen. This is the second attack on ships in the area by Houthi forces that we know of. In the past few weeks, the USS Laboon has shot down a lot of Houthi drones and rockets. Recently, the U.S. Central Command reported a complicated attack by Iranian-made unmanned drones, along with the launch of anti-ship cruise missiles and anti-ship ballistic missiles from parts of Yemen held by the Houthis. CENTCOM said that parts of these attacks were stopped by FA-18 fighter jets from the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower aircraft carrier, 3 American warships, and a British Navy ship. UK sources also agreed with the US version of the Houthi attacks that didn't work. UK Defense Secretary Grant Shapps said that the Royal Navy and US Navy forces had stopped the Houthis' biggest attack in the Red Sea so far. The Houthis are backed by Iran. 3 Houthi drones and 3 missiles were shot down by troops from both countries in just one night, according to Shapps. The statement says that the British warship HMS Diamond fired Sea Viper missiles at the drones as they were heading toward it and other business ships in the area. So, the Houthis tried some ways that didn't work to hide the fact that their situation in the region was getting weaker. The spread of fake news stories that the Houthis haven't been successful is one of these ways. The Gulf of Aden was the most recent place where this happened. The Houthi movement said that Ocean Jazz in the Gulf of Aden had been hit by missiles. When or where the attack happened, as well as whether it did any damage, were not made clear. It was said that the Houthi movement in Yemen struck the American cargo ship Ocean Jazz in the Gulf of Aden, but the U.S. military refuted this. In a statement, U.S. Naval Forces Central Command said it was clearly wrong to say that Houthi rebels backed by Iran were able to attack and destroy the MV Ocean Jazz. NavCent said it was in regular contact with the MV Ocean Jazz during its safe journey. Ambry, a British marine security company, said that the U.S. Navy bought the ship that the Houthis are said to have attacked. The Houthis have been spreading these kinds of false stories of strikes for a long time. The Houthi fighters who are working for Tehran want to make the area less safe and more chaotic. So, the Houthis said in a social media post that their Navy forces had attacked a ship called the Chem Ranger with several appropriate naval missiles and scored a direct hit. This time, no time or other information was given about the attack on foreign shipping lines. Rebels backed by Iran said they hit the commercial ship in the Gulf of Aden, but the U.S. military later said the group's rockets missed their target. Central Command for the Middle East of the U.S. military said in a statement that the Houthis fired 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles at the U.S.-owned MV Chem Ranger, which has the flag of Marshall Island. The attack happened on Thursday night. CENTCOM said, though, that the crew saw the rockets hit the water close to the ship. No one was hurt, and the ship was not damaged. Marine traffic said the Chem Ranger was a chemical ship from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, that was on its way to Kuwait. The good news is that the ship did not sustain any major damage. The Chem Ranger is thought to have kept going on its path after the failed attack. The British marine risk management company Ambry said that an accident was reported by a Marshall chemical ship that was traveling the same route southeast of the port of Aden in Yemen. It was said that an Indian warship stepped in to stop the fight. After this news, the British Marine Security Service UKMTO also reported an incident in the same area but did not name the ship. They said in a bulletin that the ship and its crew were safe and that the ship was moving on to the next port. So why are these dangerous acts happening? And what will the Houthis do in the future in this area? Attacks on Houthi sites in Yemen have not only made things more dangerous in an area that was already very violent, but they have also moved Yemen farther away from the peace that is still needed there. 2 things in the complicated country make a conflict-torn area even more complicated. They are Houthi support for the Palestinian cause and the way that Yemen's geography affects the way politics work. Yemen is a great example of geopolitics, which is the study of how geography and politics affect each other. Yemen may not have a lot of money, but the benefits of Western globalization are often not secured, and they run past its shores all day and night. Asia and the Gulf send about 15% of the things that come into Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa by sea. Most of the oil that is processed and more than 13% of the oil that is waste go through waterways. Israel does about a quarter of its total foreign trade and transit through the Red Sea. Most of its Asian goods and exports go through this path. The fighters backed by Iran saw all of these as valuable resources that the Houthis could use to get rich and take over the area. This means it was clear why the Houthis were causing chaos in the area. Israel was worried about the rise in this kind of looting as well. Because the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is so small, Israel has long been afraid that it could be used as a security hole. There have been many years when Israel tried to form partnerships with countries like Eritrea to protect the waters from attempts to close them off, first by Egypt and then by Iran. One reason Israel and the UAE signed the Ibrahim Accords in 2020 was so that the UAE could protect its own coastal areas. This network includes Djibouti, Eritrea, Somaliland, and Yemen's Param Island and Socotra Islands. While other countries in the area were being careful, the Houthis were testing out what kind of military power they could have. The group, which is backed by Iran, started using the recently taken over key port of Hodeidah on the west coast of Yemen as a base in October 2016. The base gave the Houthis more confidence, so they fired twice on the USS Mason as a way to fight back against the US, which was helping the Saudis in the air. After this terrorist act, the Houthis kept making things worse in the Red Sea without going after anyone in particular. The US and UK have been taking extra steps to protect themselves from these kinds of attempts in the area and have been adding to their Navy forces in the Red Sea. Thanks for seeing us. We work all the time to get you the most up-to-date and accurate news, so you don't miss the videos that our team has put together, which include the newest news and special stories on the war in the Middle East and around the world.
You can click the Super Thanks button below, like our movies,